You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Before we get into this episode of How to 20-something, I do have a very exciting announcement for you guys, and that is I am offering another workshop at the end of this month. So if you're listening to this on or before April 29th at 7 p.m., then you should really join me in This Is Not Your Life, where I will be walking you through how to really own your life. So this is for you if you're listening and you are someone who compares and despairs. If you're someone who is worrying about what other people think of what you're doing or not doing. If you are someone who goes on Instagram to figure out a workout and then asks your friend for what workout they're doing and then asks your mom what you think you should be doing, and you have all this information and yet you don't know what decision to make for yourself, then this is for you. And on a more serious note, if you're someone who goes online and is feeling really overwhelmed and burnt out from all of the political nonsense, what's going on in our market, from really just all of the noise that is happening in and around our lives, then this is for you. It is to help you essentially learn how to not be ignorant around all the information that is out there, both from people in your lives to strangers on the internet, but understand it and then be able to make a decision and take action based on what you want for yourself and what's going to help you out within your life so that you do own it. And you can sign up for this free event, because it is free, by heading to the show notes or to jessdiamondcoaching.com/noise and put in your email and your name, and then you'll get a confirmation link sent right to your inbox in 5 minutes or less. But you should really join me. It's on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world, and there will be a replay sent out if you can't make it live. Because I know I have some international people listening, which is pretty freaking cool. So please join me on April 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern, and I promise you this is not something you are going to regret spending a Tuesday night doing. All right, now back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something with yet another topic recommended by one of you, which is a great reminder because if you ever want me to do a deep dive episode on a particular topic, then please head to the show notes and submit your request. I am always looking for inspiration on what to talk about because I honestly reach a point where I go completely blank with what guest or what subject to discuss. And that's where you come in. So please, please, please help me help you by submitting a topic request for an episode. Again, in the show notes. But like I said, this episode was a request, and the request was to discuss the differences between organic dating and online dating. And I know I've done episodes on online dating and episodes on dating in your 20s in general, but this one is to compare and contrast your experience between the two and how to approach the dating world, as well as to better understand your own preferences and expectations. Because there are a lot of differences in the mindset, the outcomes, and the expectations when it comes to dating in real life versus dating online. But there are also some similarities, and it's very possible to be successful across both aspects. I mean, my sister met her now husband on Bumble, which is wild to say since they just got married a few weeks ago. A friend of mine met her fiance also on Bumble, and another friend met his girlfriend on Tinder. My best friend met her boyfriend in real life. I met my boyfriend in real life. I personally have never had success with online dating, but it doesn't mean it doesn't work. And that's because it's a preference. Anyone can use an app to help them with their dating life, but not everyone is going to approach it with an open mind like you would in the wild or organically. And by that, I mean, I stand by my opinion that dating apps are superficial because, and I want to emphasize the because, your organic meetups also have a superficial aspect to them with an initial level of attraction. But dating apps don't give you a full vibe of someone. Think of dating apps like a highlight reel of someone's life where your first impression is, do I like this person's face? Okay, keep scrolling. Do I like this person's age, height, occupation, location, and whatever else they have on their initial bio portion? Like their sign, their political affiliation, if they have pets or want pets, and if they want kids or have kids. Cool. All those boxes look good so far. Keep scrolling. Try to get a personality vibe from this online profile. Then, if all is good, you swipe right, hope you match, send a message, and go from there. There are a lot of steps that occur between the initial impression to even exchanging the first message, let alone going on a date. Where with an in-person meeting, you're going to exchange words, get their vibe, and decide if you find them attractive or not, all within the first 2 minutes and all at the same time. If you're anything like me, you're big on people's energies, to which you cannot gauge from an online profile, thereby making online dating a lot more difficult to peruse through with the hopes of finding your match. I find online dating to also be a lot more mentally draining because you're going to have to go through a lot of ugly ducklings before you find someone you think could be a good fit, which is different from being in the real world because on an app, you're being exposed to a lot more people at one given time than you are when you're just casually existing. And then there's the aspect of having too many options that you do not end up with any. This is where I see a lot of the problems in online dating come up. It's called the paradox by choice, and it's a term that originated from psychologist Barry Schwartz, which suggests that having too many options can lead to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and difficulty making a decision. In regards to online dating, it's the dissatisfaction and difficulty in making a decision that leads to the constant desire to search for someone new in the hopes that there is someone better. Then, to add to all of that, when/if you do find someone you like and the first date goes well, and now you're going on multiple dates, how do you know if the other person has removed themselves from being an option in the online dating world? Or, in other words, having to have the conversation if you are both done with the apps, if they've deleted their profile. I can tell you right now, I'm in a relationship and I still have a Hinge profile out in existence. And so does he. I haven't had the app downloaded since the end of the summer of last year, and that was because I was done with the dating apps and had fully surrendered to spending any more time swiping through profiles. But I do still have a profile. And I know that this type of conversation is a cause of conflict or mistrust for a lot of couples who do meet online. So if that's you, or if you do find yourself in this position, then you need to have a conversation with the person you're seeing about where you are at with deleting the app versus keeping the app. Sure, I can agree that this conversation is almost synonymous to the are we in a relationship or exclusive? And there is a right way and a whole bunch of wrong ways to approach this conversation. I'm going to give you an example of a right way so you don't fuck this up or overanalyze or put a ton of pressure on the other person to have a decision made the second you have your decision made. When you go to have this conversation, you need to 1, release any and all outcomes. 2, know what you want and communicate from that place. And 3, have it in person. For example, you could say, hey, I've been thinking about us, and I know I don't want to see other people or continue to be on the dating apps. I like you, and I like where this is going, so I wanted to communicate that to you. And you can follow it up with a question asking what their thoughts are or if they've thought about where they're at, or you can just leave the first part as is and just inform them of your own thoughts and feelings. Again, releasing the outcome from the other person or the response you really, really hope they give. Because obviously, if you're ready to speak up for what you want, you're going to want the other person to be on the same page. But you forget, some people are slower readers, and you need to be okay with that when you go to initiate. What I'm about to say is unrelated to online dating, but it is related to communication, Because whether it comes to online dating or organic dating, you will reach a point in your dating stage where you are going to need to and want to have these kinds of conversations. And it's when I was a little over a month into dating my now boyfriend. I knew he didn't want to date anyone else. We hadn't had the talk yet, but it didn't really matter to me because I felt secure with him and with where we were at. However, I got asked out on a date by someone from my improv class. And so I told my guy that I got asked out. And here's how it went. I said, I knew I wasn't ready to have the what are we talk. And I knew from my intuition that he wasn't either. But I did know where I stood, and that's what I communicated. I said, hey, this is not a what are we talk. I'm just letting you know I got asked out on a date for this weekend, and I don't want to date anyone else besides you. He was cute with his response because he tried to explain that I was free to do whatever I wanted because we were not exclusive yet and we had not had this discussion yet, so I was within my free range, to which I told him to shut up and that I was just letting him know I don't want to date other guys. Moral of the story, communication goes a long, long way, and you need to learn how to be able to communicate your needs and where you stand so there is no gray area. And again, this is in relation to any relationship, but on topic to this episode, it's going to happen whether you meet your person out in the wild or you meet them online. Gray areas lead to a Ross and Rachel situation of they were on a break. Because were they on a break? And if you've seen Friends, I really hope you get that reference. Like I said, whether it comes to online dating or organic dating, these bigger, seemingly scary conversations are going to come up. So you need to be at a place where you are secure with yourself enough to release the other person. Because we cannot control other people. We can control ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. And that's the place you need to be at with yourself before you approach the person you are seeing with your needs and your wants and where you are at. The goal of the conversation should be to voice your own thoughts and not try to get what you want from the other person or even manipulate them into telling you what you want to hear because you're feeling anxious. So take some deep breaths. Try your best to come from a secure place, and that means knowing for what you want and being able to communicate from your perspective and not from asking anything of the other person. Focusing back on online dating, which is the most common way to date in today's world, I will say there are some clear benefits that organic dating does not offer. For example, online dating means you know for sure someone's intention. You know what they're looking for, that they're single, and that you have a shot if you want to shoot it, providing they are truthful on their profile. Apps take a lot of guesswork out of the equation, as well as the uncomfortable face-to-face risk of rejection. I think this bodes well more for men than women because on average, men do the asking out. I'm not saying women don't or can't. I mean, I've definitely shot my shot to a guy or two in person and on the apps. I'm just saying it's not as common for the girl to make the first move. Men risk making a woman uncomfortable or reading the wrong signals, and I know that's something a decent man definitely wants to avoid when it comes to approaching a girl in person. In which case, apps are the seemingly easier way to go. You just have to know yourself and what you're looking for. I want to preface this with saying when I'm talking about apps, yes, I am mostly referring to dating apps, but this also includes social media apps and when you're DM'd by someone. It's just that most of the time, when you think of online dating, you think of the apps, the major apps like Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble. And if there's any other ones that have popped up that I don't know about. But men avoid that awkward confrontation or that awkward uncomfortability that dating apps make it seem to be the easier way to go. You just have to know yourself and what you're looking for, which goes back to setting clear intentions, deciding if you're someone who needs to date multiple people at once and then basically pick one of the options, or if you're a one and done kind of person, while also knowing that the other person on the other side of the app could view dating entirely differently. Again, looping it back to how important communication is throughout the different stages of dating. For example, I'm someone who knows right off the bat if I want another date with this person. I'm that way with everything, whether it's a confident hell yes or it's a no. I'm like this with shopping for clothes, with people, with apartments, with big decisions. Because I know that if I'm on the fence, if I'm like, I don't know, or maybe, that it's really a no. Because when it is a yes, it is a fuck yes. But I also know that not everyone is like that. And when it comes to dating, that other person might be someone who pursues a maybe because it could later turn into a fuck yes. In my personal opinion, you both pretty much know by date 4 or 5 if this is going to be something worth pursuing. So if you're still in the I don't know phase, then you're probably not interested or not fully present to this person, which again means you're probably not interested in seeing where things go long term, or you're self-sabotaging and you get to decide for yourself what that is and how that's showing up for you. Because I know a lot of girls who will self-sabotage and not be interested in a really good guy they're talking to and are attracted to, and it's because they're used to the toxic side of dating. So keep an eye out for that because it happens more times than not. And in that case, I would say continue to pursue this guy. Maybe not put all your eggs in one basket. You might need another toxic man to really steer you in the right direction towards the good guy. But know that this is when I'm talking on these podcasts, it is very generalized. So take it for what it's worth, but also be aware of your own tendencies and be able to identify when they're showing up for you. But all in all, dating apps aren't a bad way to meet someone, and they definitely aren't anything to be ashamed of when people ask how you guys met. But they do have a history of being more discouraging, and it's because you're constantly seeing all of the single people that exist in your area, and you've reached your wit's ends on dead-end first dates, wondering when you're going to get quote-unquote lucky and find a suitable partner. Dating online is a vastly different experience than dating organically, and it's because of the frequency of interactions with other single people, the ratio of meeting a stranger to going on a date that will hopefully lead to a second date, then a third, and so on, and the overall process of finding someone you think might be worth the time, energy, and money to date. Meeting someone in person does take a lot longer. It requires you to leave your bedroom, and you risk face-to-face rejection. In which case, go back and listen to episode 88, as that one is all about overcoming rejection when it happens. If you've listened to any of my other dating episodes, you would know I am definitely not a fan of meeting a stranger off the internet. Any relationship or situationship I've ever been in, I've met the guy in person first. And it's because if I don't like your vibes in our first interaction, you very easily get removed from the dating portion of my brain. I also think whether you consider yourself spiritual or not, you have a level of intuition that comes through when you initially interact with a stranger. And that's the benefit of Organic Meetup, because you get to vet this person without the pressure of being on a first date. It's a low commitment, low risk way of weeding through potential partners, because you haven't agreed to a one-on-one scheduled interaction with this person. You're simply existing and have somehow run into them, whether it's at a bar, playing sports, at run club, doing work at a coffee shop, wherever it was out in the wild. And if you like this person's energy and have placed them in the I could date you category of your brain, then you get to decide if you want to carve out time in your life to spend it getting to know this person a little better. My best friend Bree also likes to preach being friends with someone first and not only putting them in the date or not boxes to also alleviate the pressures that come with dating. Pressures like, do you kiss or not? Do you see a future with this person or not? Because yes, I know some of you think this right out of the gates. And then it's, are you sexually attracted to them? All the pesky thoughts that flood your mind because you've labeled this first hangout as a date. I guess probably not pesky thoughts, but thoughts. Thoughts that aren't serving you in this moment because you've labeled it as a date. I know I put guys in boxes and therefore put a lot of pressure on the first date. And I know I'm not alone when it comes to mentally categorizing people you meet with how you want to pursue or not pursue any kind of relationship with them. But then I would get really discouraged when the date didn't go well. Except with my current boyfriend. I fully had given up on dating and was down in the dumps And then I met him and he expressed an interest in me and kept a good conversation. So I figured, why not? I'll go on a first date with him without the added pressure of, oh no, another dead-end date, or oh no, is this going to be the last first date I go on? And just any other looming thought that puts that additional pressure on my interaction with him. And lo and behold, it led to a relationship. However, I did not go into it with the friendship mentality. I went into it with, yeah, I'll go on a date, see if I like you enough to date you. But I know I did have low expectations. And I also know he far exceeded what I was expecting. So while Bree doesn't think there's a difference between a friendship developing and a romantic relationship developing, I do. I think your brain is emotionally charged in a different way when you are potentially romantically interested in someone versus only seeing them as a friend. So I stand by my opinion that whenever we meet anyone, we subconsciously place them into a box from acquaintance to friend to coworker to lover to enemy. And there could be overlaps, and people can move to different boxes. But it's just what happens. It's our natural intuition. One last thing I want to touch on, and I touched on it more so on the online dating of things, but this is more so where organic dating comes into play. And that is, there is less of a selection bias when it comes to organic meetups, especially for us females. And it's mainly because men do not photograph well. But in all seriousness, you are less picky when you are out and about in real life versus when on the apps. And this is in regards to level of attractiveness, height, age, location, job, literally everything and anything that you use to immediately decide if you are going to swipe right or left on a person. All of that goes away, for the most part, when you're in the real world. And it's because you are selecting from a seemingly smaller pool and not directly comparing one person to another back to back. Again, looping it back to the having too many options and constantly waiting for someone better to come along. But overall, there are a lot of differences in how you mentally approach dating when it comes to meeting someone virtually versus meeting someone out in the wild. You're going to have a lot more dates when you're dating online, but you're also going to have a lot more frustrations. I know I would be much more frustrated when I was dating last year and using the apps to help me because of how many first dates led to absolutely nothing. But I was going on more dates, and honestly, I needed the practice of hanging out with a stranger. The bottom line is, how you date is up to you, but you do need to set realistic expectations and know that regardless of if it's in person or online, it's a numbers game. You're going to go on a lot of dead-end first dates until you never have to go on another first date again. There's success in both types of dating. So if you're partaking in both, if you're swiping online and leaving your bedroom for real-life interactions, then you're going to increase your chances of success. And if you're feeling discouraged, then take a break because you're not putting your best self out there when you are feeling fed up with the single life. In summary of this entire episode, how you approach dating is going to differ per the individual, the avenue of meeting one another, and the ratio of success to not failure, but not success. Hopefully, this helped clear up your mentality around organic versus online dating so you can go into these approaches with the appropriate mindset. And good luck. But thank you for listening to another episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, if you agree or even disagree with what I had to say, then let me know. And if you benefited from this episode, then please share it, send it to a friend, give me a 5-star rating, post it to your story on social media, and tag me at coach.justdiamond when you do, so I can see it. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.